On this vote, the yeas are 222, the nays are 209. The bill is passed. The motion is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
It was late July, weed high and the sky was burning. I kissed your neck, said drive safe, while the porch light was turning. You took that back road by Spencer Creek like you always do. Didn't know a rusted gate and a blind curve would take me from you. And now I sit on our porch swing, count stars that don't shine. Sheriff called it bad luck, but it feels more like a crime. It was senseless, like rain on a barn fire, like Sunday prayers in a house full of liars. You were young, you were mine, you were barely 22, and now the wind says your name, but it don't sound like you were senseless, what they call an accident. But no reason's ever gonna make a damn bit of sense. Your boots still sit by the door, scuffed and still muddy, and I keep on cooking for two like I'm waiting for a buddy. That old dog don't bark no more since the sirens came. She just stares at the road like it might bring you back again. Folks say God has a plan, or time will dull the pain, but no preacher's words can rebuild what broke that day. I replay the scene like an old VCR, trying to pause it, rewind it, but it don't get that far. Just metal and silence and flashing blue lights, then the long hollow sound of a world saying goodnight. It was senseless, like flowers in the snow, like talking to the grave thinking you might know. You were breathing, you were laughing, then you just weren't there. And I'm stuck with the questions in that blank heavy air, and baby, so am I. Since the day you left, with no reason why.
Profound sorrow of the death of the Honorable Richard B. Cheney, a former Vice President of the United States of America. Resolved that the clerk communicate these resolutions to the Senate and transmit a copy thereof to the family of the deceased. Resolved that when the House adjourns today, it adjourn as a further mark of respect to the memory of the deceased.
Without objection, the resolution is agreed to, and the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Pursuant to Clause 13 of Rule 1 and House Resolution 874, the House stands adjourned until 9 a.m. tomorrow as a further mark of respect to the memory of the
The form of the resolution noticed by the gentlelady from Washington will appear in the record at this point. The chair will not at this point determine whether the resolution constitutes a question of privilege. That determination will be made at a time designated for consideration of the resolution. The House will be in order. Members are instructed to clear the well. The House will be in order and members will clear the well. For what purpose does the gentleman from Illinois seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to House Resolution, I'm sorry? Who did?
Will the gentleman repeat his request at a microphone? Will the gentleman find a microphone and repeat his request?
Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask unanimous consent to address the body, the world.
Not recognized for that purpose.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank
Recognized.
the Honorable, hello?
The House will be in order. The well will be cleared. All members will clear the well. For what purpose does the gentleman from Oklahoma seek recognition?
Up the bill H.R. 5371, the Continuing Appropriations, Agriculture, Legislative Branch, Military Construction, and Veterans Affairs and Extension Act 2026, with the Senate amendment thereto, and I have a motion at the desk.
The clerk will report the title of the bill, designate the Senate amendment, and designate the motion.
H.R. 5371, an act making continuing appropriations and extensions for fiscal year 2026 and for other purposes. Senate amendment. Mr. Cole of Oklahoma moves that the House concur in the Senate amendment to H.R. 5371.
Pursuant to House Resolution 873, the motion shall be debatable for 1 hour, equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Appropriations or their respective designees. The gentleman from Oklahoma, Mr. Cole, and the gentlelady from Connecticut, Ms. DeLauro, each will control 30 minutes. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Oklahoma. The House will be in order. The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on the measure under consideration.
Without objection, so ordered. The House will be in order. All members are instructed to take their conversations outside. The gentleman from Oklahoma is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you. I rise today in support of the Continuing Appropriations, Agriculture, Legislative Branch, Military Construction and Veterans Affairs, and Extension Act of 2026. History reminds us, Mr. Speaker, that shutdowns never change the outcome. The only cost is paid by the American people. Over the last 43 days, the facts did not shift, the votes required did not shift, the path forward did not change. The only thing that did move was the level of pain Democrats inflicted on the nation. For 6 long weeks, Americans have paid the price for a shutdown they neither caused nor deserved. The pain has been all too real for far too many Americans, including families struggling without paychecks, seniors on the brink of hunger and food assistance lapse, airports in chaos, the communities bracing as programs that they rely on were stalled or stopped altogether. And with yesterday being Veterans Day, we especially reflect on the impact of this shutdown on those who served our nation, past and present. Our military families were left wondering if they would be paid. Thanks to President Trump, they were. Yet this is not how the greatest nation in the world should function. Today, that changes. The legislation before us reopens the government, restores critical services, and puts an end to the needless hardship Democrats have inflicted on the country. This bill supports our troops, it pays federal workers, it fully funds SNAP benefits until September 30th of next year, it compensates our air traffic controllers right before a busy holiday season. In fact, it takes a holistic approach in ensuring federal services and programs are operational. In the simplest terms, we're putting the government back to work for our people. The bill is fundamentally the same responsible approach House Republicans offered on September 19th, but with an important addition: 3 full-year appropriations bills for FY26. These bipartisan, bicameral full-year appropriations bills cover the Military, Construction, and Veterans Affairs, Legislative Branch, and Agriculture, Rural Development, and Food and Drug Administration divisions. Once passed, we will have full-year funding in place for many of our most crucial programs. Military construction needs will be met for a full year, as will medical programs for our nation's veterans. The legislative branch will be properly resourced, including critical funding enhancements for the Capitol Police and for member security. And agriculture, food, and nutrition programs like WIC and SNAP will be fully funded to help vulnerable people in need. Importantly, this legislation delivers member-driven community project funding in both the military construction and agricultural division, which will direct resources back into the hands of the communities we represent. This was a top priority for the Appropriations Committee, and we achieved it while holding overall spending levels in check. It's responsible appropriations progress like this that causes me to reflect on an important message to our friends in the Democratic leadership. My sincere apologies to Minority Leaders Jeffries and Schumer, but after today, you will no longer get to hold the government hostage, and you will not get to force a rushed, pork-filled Christmas omnibus at the end of the year. Republicans have actively restored a responsible line-by-line process. Over the next few months, we will continue this work and efforts through regular order. This Article I advancement is an accomplishment that every member of this chamber can be proud of, regardless of party. Yet some still need to decide what they stand for today. So to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, do you want the leverage or do you want to legislate? Do you treat Americans as collateral damage or as constituents? And do you answer to your caucus or your country? For Republicans, the answer has been clear for the last 43 days. We have and we will continue to put Americans first. Democrats can join us. They have an opportunity to make the responsible choice to reopen our government and pass 3 official full-year appropriations bills. 8 Senate Democrats saw reason and did exactly that. I hope House Democrats do the same. True courage is taking responsible action for the nation, even when politics makes it inconvenient. Let's reopen the government and get back to work. With that, Mr. Speaker, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Oklahoma reserves. The gentlelady from Connecticut is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The House is not in order. Thank you.
House will be in order.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself 7 minutes.
The gentlelady is recognized.
I rise in opposition to this bill that does nothing, not one thing, to address the Republican health care crisis amid a cost of living crisis. More than 20 million Americans will have to pay double, even triple their monthly insurance premiums in just a matter of weeks. And this bill leaves families without even a glimmer of hope that their costs might go down. Energy prices are up, grocery prices are up, housing costs are up. When 2/3 of American workers are living paycheck to paycheck, you can understand why the most important issue on their minds is affordability. What does President Trump say? And I quote, "Affordability is a con job," end quote. How out of touch can you be? Mr. President, start to listen to the American people, not your millionaire, billionaire friends. President Trump and my Republican colleagues refused to address this issue. They continued to avoid it. They were so intent on avoiding it that they shut down the government instead of dealing with it. Speaker Johnson has indicated that he will not deal with it. He has shown no interest in holding a vote on extending the health care subsidies, which would prevent monthly costs from soaring. Republicans have tried to say they will deal with this problem their own way, but they have no plan. They are trying to repeal the Affordable Care Act, as they have been trying to do unsuccessfully for 15 years. However, they are poised to succeed, which is why it is so important for this continuing resolution to fail. President Trump and Republicans, their plan is to drive up prices for everybody, compounding the cost of living crisis. More than 2 million Americans are expected to lose their health insurance next year because it has simply become too expensive. There are more than 50 pages of health care provisions in this bill. Not one of them stops costs from skyrocketing at the beginning of next year. Not one of them offers relief to American families being squeezed tighter and tighter by the Republican crisis. There is one group of people, however, who will receive some relief thanks to this bill. United States senators who may have participated in an insurrection, snuck into this bill at the 11th hour by Senate Republicans, is a provision to pay out at least $1 million each to 8 United States senators implicated in the January 6th insurrection. Understand, this is a corrupt precedent. This is where members can profit from their own votes. It's the fleecing of the American people, which they get and understand. At the same time, this bill excludes a provision that will order a plaque to be hung that honors the police officers who put their lives on the line to defend our democracy from that same insurrection. What a contrast. It is yet another instance of this administration's shameless corruption that is financially ruining American families. While there is $230 million for the president to pay himself from the Department of Justice, $8 million for some of his closest Senate allies, $200 million for a pair of private jets for the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, $40 billion to Argentina, the American people are left with nothing but higher costs. This bill also fails to fully cover the Toxic Exposure Fund, which was created to support veterans exposed to burn pits and Agent Orange. We made a promise to stand by the men and women who served our country in uniform. This bill does not live up to that promise. You know, Republicans need to stop taking photographs with veterans and then vote against their health care. Those who lead in the appropriations process here believe in the constitutional power of the purse. And over the past month, President Trump has been firing federal workers en masse. And when his administration has failed there, they have made life so miserable for federal workers that they had no choice but to leave. Federal workers should be, and I quote, traumatically affected. Those are the words of the Office of Management and Budget Director Russ Vought, an unelected bureaucrat. The federal workforce has dwindled by 200,000 since January, jeopardizing the public services that so many people rely on. Spare us your false concern. And since January, this administration has been stealing from our communities, withholding as much as $410 billion in funding approved by Democrats and Republicans, House, Senate, signed into law, and they are illegally blocking authorized funds from being distributed. Even now, As we debate this bill, the Trump administration is arguing to the Supreme Court that they should be allowed to withhold food stamp funding that Congress lawfully approved. They were ordered by 3 separate courts to distribute food assistance and are still fighting to withhold it. It is not connected to opening this government. They have the money. They have it now for food stamps. They just refuse to use it. Imagine using food as a political weapon, unspeakable and immoral. It seems like their only plan is to strip children of food assistance while kicking their parents off their health insurance. They have demonstrated that that is who they are. These are their true colors. You cannot expect Democrats to go along with any bipartisan funding deal if that agreement can be undone with a party line vote. Congress must assert its authority over the power of the purse. I encourage my colleagues to vote no, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlelady reserves. The gentleman from Oklahoma is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to our distinguished majority leader, the gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Scalise.
The gentleman from Louisiana is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank my friend, the Chairman of the Appropriations, Mr. Cole from Oklahoma, for not only yielding, but for bringing this important bill to the floor. Our appropriators worked tirelessly to negotiate a multi-bill package that is part of this bill to reopen the government. And we never should have been here, Mr. Speaker. We tried as Republicans over a month ago to prevent a government shutdown. We had a vote here on the House floor. 99% of Republicans voted to keep the government open, and 99% of Democrats voted to shut it down. And then that bill went over to the Senate, and we watched for 42 days where time and time again, Democrats, just to appease their most radical base, continued to vote in unison to shut the government down. And during that shutdown, we saw millions of families experience pain, Mr. Speaker, pain and suffering that Democrats themselves acknowledged that they imposed on the American people. But they said over and over again, we have quote after quote from Democrats during the shutdown, that they needed to impose the suffering to get leverage, Mr. Speaker, to use the American people as pawns to get leverage. For what? For what? They ultimately filed an alternative bill, $1.5 trillion mad spending spree that included things like $200 billion of taxpayer funding for illegals to get taxpayer benefits, while they gutted the $50 billion rural health care fund that we put in place in the Working Families Tax Cut. So, Mr. Speaker, anybody who comes up here and says they care about health care, they were also advocating to gut the $50 billion rural health care fund to provide $200 billion in taxpayer-funded health care benefits for illegals. It's insanity. And if you really want to look at where this all began, as some on the other side, Democrats, want to talk about a health care crisis, the health care law of the land is what many refer to as Obamacare. But let's remember the original name that Democrats gave that bill when they created it. They called it the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act. Only Democrats voted for it. Republicans knew it was going to be anything but affordable. It was going to interfere with the doctor-patient relationship. And unfortunately, it's done that. But if you want to talk about affordable, and maybe the only other bill that's more laughable in its name is the Inflation Reduction Act. Yeah, that's another product brought to you by Democrat-only votes. The Inflation Reduction Act, which ushered in the inflation under Joe Biden that we're still trying to shake today. But the Affordable Care Act, Mr. Speaker, since it started, Americans have seen over 80% increases in their health care costs because of a Democrat-created bill that they want to now blame on Republicans. I understand why they would want to try to now pawn that off on somebody else. But then if you look over time, during COVID, they created a temporary relief fund, not to individuals, Mr. Speaker, but to insurance companies. Democrats created a temporary, they called it temporary in the law, temporary COVID relief tax credit to insurance companies to bail out big insurance companies who are seeing record profits, and that's now what they want Republicans to renew. A insurance company bailout that Democrats created to be temporary. They set it up to expire. And now they're saying that the world's going to end if that insurance company bailout doesn't get renewed. While at the same time, when we as Republicans worked to actually lower premiums for families, they fought it every step of the way. That's right. We had a bill that we passed through this House just a few months ago in the Working Families Tax Credit. Part of that bill was called the cost share reduction, was scored by the CBO to lower premiums for families by over 12%. And what happened? It gets over, and by the way, every Democrat voted against that too, because they've never cared about lowering premiums. Then that bill gets over to the Senate. Senate Democrats worked overtime to get that provision removed. And if you go look at Senate Democrat Budget Committee website, they still brag that they removed that provision that would have lowered premiums for families. So, absolutely, Republicans have worked and will continue, by the way, to work to lower premiums for families, but make no mistake, the high premiums that everybody faces today are a result of the inaptly named Affordable Care Act and the many failures associated with it. But this bill today is about ending the misery Democrats created on families. That is just about funding the government, not about solving other problems that we should be working to solve, but about getting the government back open while not holding the American people hostage. And that, Mr. Speaker, is what has disgusted the American people most during this shutdown. That should have never happened, but it's that it has caused real suffering for American families. Our men and women in uniform that had to wonder whether or not they're going to get paid. Air traffic controllers who already had a highly stressful job and then had to show up for work without getting paid. Multiple paychecks missed. Now you're seeing, because a lot of those air traffic controllers have to go work jobs as Uber drivers. They aren't even being able to show up for work because they still have bills due, their rent's due. They're trying to put food on their table, and Democrats want to vote no tonight to keep denying them food. The 42 million SNAP recipients, those people that are low income that need those food benefits, if you vote no today, you are voting to deny those 42 million low-income families basic food needs. Don't talk about how much you care about low-income people and vote no tonight to deny them food, basic services, basic things that American families need who shouldn't be part of the leverage Democrats want to show their radical base that they're fighting Donald Trump because they're upset with the results of the election from November. It is time to end this madness, Mr. Speaker. Let's get this government back open. Let's go negotiate our differences, which are many, but let's do it while not continuing to hold the American people hostage. I urge my Democrat colleagues who have voted relentlessly to shut this government down and to impose this suffering on the American people to stop. Stop imposing the suffering. Let's open the government. Let's get back to the work of the American people. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Louisiana yields back. Does the gentleman from Oklahoma reserve?
I do, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman reserves. The gentlelady from Connecticut is recognized.
I remind the majority leader that a 60-year-old couple earning $82,800 per year, annual premiums will rise by over $17,000, a 255% increase. It now gives me great pleasure to yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Georgia, the distinguished ranking member of the Agricultural and Rural Development Subcommittee, Mr. Bishop.
The gentleman from Georgia is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Ranking Member DeLauro. As Ranking Member of the Agriculture, Rural Development, and FDA Subcommittee, I rise to oppose this bill. Though it does represent, for the most part, solid bipartisan work to provide investments in agriculture in rural America, I am disappointed that the rest of it falls far short of the needs of most Americans. Healthcare providers and patients are frustrated and frightened by the imminent skyrocketing of healthcare costs caused by the loss of the ACA tax credits and cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, and life-saving biomedical research. My constituent, Angela Holmes, is unable to walk without debilitating pain. She's worried that without tax credits, she won't be able to afford health insurance to complete the multiple back surgeries she needs. For many Georgians, health care is a matter of life and death. Our Republican colleagues could have corrected this in the Rules Committee, but they rejected an amendment last night that would have lowered health premium costs. To me, that's unconscionable. So are the administration's actions during the shutdown. As a Christian, I'm outraged that USDA used the shutdown to illegally withhold SNAP from 42 million Americans. USDA had the chance to do the right thing and use designated contingency funds, but rejected it. And when ordered to do so by the courts, they fought all the way to the Supreme Court to keep hungry families from receiving food. America produces the highest quality, safest, most affordable, and abundant food, fiber, and medicine anywhere in the world. To that end, this bill provides many welcome investments. It fully funds SNAP and WIC, replenishes the SNAP and WIC contingency funds, and fully funds cash value vouchers for fruits and vegetables for women and children. It also helps rural America by providing $1 billion in single-family direct home loans, $120 million over the House level, and funding water and wastewater programs at $446 million, both issues that Democrats tried to address in full committee. The bill provides $1.8 billion for the Agricultural Research Service, $1.6 billion for NIFA, protecting farmers, small businesses, and families against President Trump's budget request to eliminate